Welcome in to a brand new episode of a whole new ball game. I'm Alex Fuse. There's Vinnie Pasquantino, my great co-host, and we have another big show for you today.
Yeah, so I got this light behind my computer now because I am an official podcaster. So I think what I'm going to start doing is whatever the opposite of fading is into the show. Like I'm going to appear out of nowhere. So I'm going to start it with it real dim in here, and then just bam, there I am.
There you are.
I mean, this light is super bright. I've got faces painted behind me. I've got a men's soccer team behind me. This is living the life on a college campus for a few days. That is what this is. The walls are covered with random things, and there's a puzzle on the table that I'm using for this podcast. So Bear the dog is in the room. He's had a long day of visiting other dogs. We went to the dog park today.
Wow.
Stayed there for a while.
No, how is Bear with other dogs?
He's good, but he does this thing. So first of all, at the dog park, he thinks that he is the greeter. So every time a new dog comes in, there's two entrances. Every time a new dog comes in, Bear's the first one to get there. So he's the first one to welcome a new dog to the dog park. Then he does this thing where if the dog is little, he likes to put his mouth around his neck. Not in an aggressive way. He's not trying to hurt the dog. He just does it one time and then he's good. It is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I hate it when he does it because he's a German Shepherd. So naturally people are already a little intimidated by him. And so I hate when he does it. But then, they sniff each other a little bit, then they're off to the races and they're good to go. But it is a little nerve-wracking, especially the first few times I saw him, because it's like, Bear, stop putting your teeth around another dog's neck. It's not cool. So we're trying to determine if he thinks he's an alpha or anything. We're trying to. He seems to be in the middle of all the fights, not because he is in the fight, but if he sees two dogs like scrapping, he'll go right into the middle and bark at the one who seems to be the aggressor. But then that makes him look like an aggressor, and I don't like that either. It's just like, Bear, go play with your friends. We don't need to start any scraps at the dog park. We're just here having a good time, getting your energy out and everything. And, it's just like, be a good dog. That's all we want. That's all we want to see is just be a good dog.
And when I eventually meet Bear, I hope he doesn't put his teeth around my neck.
Well, he's absolutely going to bark at you. If you're a new person seeing Bear, he's going to bark at you until I give you a piece of deli meat to make him sit and shake. He's really good at sitting, shaking. He'll lay down for you. He gets really aggressive with his shakes, though. When he really wants some food, he will pretty much jump on you with both paws so you give him the food. He wants to show that he's a good boy. But yeah, he'll definitely bark at you until he calms down. So that is what definitely will happen. He's really protective over Ryan and myself. So if one of us is not around, he's really cool and doesn't really bark at anybody. But if one of us is around, he freaks out about every little thing possible. But he's just like any dog. It takes some time for it to get adjusted to anything. So, we're just hanging in there here, just hanging out with Bear.
But a lot of things are happening in the baseball world, Vinny.
Yeah, give me the current events, Alex. Give them to me. Lay them on me.
I don't even know where to begin, but Blake
I'll tell you where we're going to begin. New York Jets 1-0 this week, baby.
Well, I was going to go baseball, but that's true. That is true, and it's confirmed now. The Jets got the second overall pick in the NFL draft.
And my favorite power rankings that I saw, one of my friends from school tagged me in his updated power rankings, and they are, and I'd have to agree, this is after this week, updated power rankings. First in the league, the Jets. Can't really argue with it. Number 2, the Packers in the snow, which I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say in the snow, so I'm adding on to what he said. 3, the Dolphins with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I mean, those 3 teams you just can't argue with at the current moment are probably the best 3 teams in the league. But anyways, give me the MLB news that you want to bring up. The MLB news.
Well, it was broken last night late. I was already ready for bed. Like, I passed my bedtime. You know my bedtime.
I do. I'm going to bed every night virtually through Zoom.
Yeah. And breaking news got announced that Blake Snell was heading to the San Diego Padres. And everyone just exploded. Like, this was unexpected. I think, like, there wasn't really any. I mean, there were rumors that Blake Snell might get traded at some point throughout the offseason, but for it to happen kind of just out of nowhere after 11 o'clock, just days after Christmas on a Sunday night, like, that's unexpected. Um, and now, as we're recording this at 5 o'clock, 5:04 to be exact, on Monday afternoon, it's the Padres are in deep talks to trade to get Yu Darvish in San Diego. So
Alex, you and I talked about what the industry means yesterday on our outro of the show. So you are in the industry. I will not be offering my opinions about Major League Baseball player news. I will say that Blake Snell, very good pitcher. Yu Darvish, very good pitcher. Both fantastic ball players, and that is all I will offer. So you're in the industry, so you feel free to give your opinion about what you think of the move that was made and the potential move that could be made.
Well, I think just it's an exciting time if you're a Padres fan. Even a baseball fan, you can make the argument too, and I think you can support that too. It's a great time to really be a baseball fan. And someone said to me yesterday, they're like, baseball's a dying sport. And I said, I just want to argue. And then they're like, well, you're biased. And I'm like, yeah, I'm biased, but I don't think it's a dying sport. I think, if anything, baseball is coming out of the year 2020, one of the strongest sports out there. Honestly, there is so much talk about the game now in a positive way. And I really hope that when things get back to normal, hopefully it's for the 2021 season, and I really hope that non-baseball fans start becoming fans of the game.
Yeah. It's tough to say where the state of the game of baseball is, because we just don't really know at this current moment. What we do know is last year's free agency was pretty good in compared to years past, and we don't know what free agency is really going to look like this year. So it's hard to kind of say. It depends on what you're looking at for the state of baseball too. Are you looking at it from the fan side, a player side, from the industry side? It's definitely been a challenging year for a lot of people, a lot of businesses, organizations. So we will see, hopefully, in the next few months, how people, businesses, organizations come out on the other side of that. Mm-hmm. I know, like in the NFL, the salary cap's going down, so that'll affect things. And normally the salary cap never goes down. Mm. It always goes up. So we'll see how that affects things. Obviously, in baseball, there's no salary cap, but there is a luxury tax. So we'll see if teams are more or less willing to go through that. I mean, look at the NBA, too. They're thinking about expanding because of the loss in revenue, because it does cost about $1 billion for a new team. Maybe that's an avenue Major League Baseball wants to pursue, is adding a team, or you'd have to add at least 2 teams. But maybe that's something they look at if it helps bring in more money, because obviously most things are driven by money. We play for the love of the game, but obviously there is a money aspect to it, and business owners own teams, right? I mean, that is just, business people own teams. So that's typically how that works. And they are known to be good with their money. So, you tend to trust guys that are good with their money when it comes to money subjects. But yeah, state of the game, it feels pretty good. I mean, guys are being moved. Things are happening in the game. So that's cool to see that headlines are still being made the day after Christmas in the sport of baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, this kind of goes into like our interview, if you think about it, with Matthew Schulte, who is the director of special events and promotions with the Kansas City Royals in their front office, and how the state of the game. Well, we'll talk about what the future of the game looks like with Matthew and what he thinks and what his job does to increase fan engagement at the ballpark. Matthew is the guy that makes the final decision of who the bobbleheads are each season. I think that's a pretty cool job to have, if you're asking me.
Yeah, in terms of state of the game of baseball, Matthew Schulte was an unbelievable interview, and it's a great time to have him on, just because obviously his job was affected a ton because there were no fans in the stands.
Right.
So it's tough to promote fan engagement when there are 0 in the crowd. So it was interesting to talk with him about how what he was able to do this year, what he's looking forward to next year, when he thinks we might have full stadiums again. Obviously, he's not he's not a medical expert, so he doesn't know from that end. But everybody can speculate. We can speculate, whatever.
Yeah.
So this was just a really interesting interview. He had a really cool background. I couldn't tell if he was in his house. It almost looked like he was at the stadium, but it was tough to tell. But yeah, it's a really cool interview for different subjects. Talking about bobbleheads is cool, obviously, because everybody loves bobbleheads. I mean, name me a person who says they don't like bobbleheads, and I'll show you a liar. So everybody loves them. And so it was cool to talk about bobbleheads. It's cool to talk about how he kind of grew through the Royal system. I mean, starting in the ticket booth, essentially, and then working his way up. So yeah, this was a really fun interview for us, I think, and we're excited for everybody to listen to it. So Alex, unless you have anything.
I don't have anything.
Welcome to the show, Matthew Schulte.
We got another big show for you right now. Matthew Schulte, the Senior Manager of Special Events and Promotions for the Kansas City Royals front office. Matthew, how are we doing today? Thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I am doing great.
Well, I guess Alex isn't going to start off by asking you a question. Normally that's how this goes, is the guy who does the intro starts off with the first question. But Matthew, I guess I'll start since Alex doesn't want to ask any questions today. So just going through your job title, right? Special events and promotions for the Royals. So just talk about that a little bit. Tell everybody what it means, what you do, everything.
Yeah, so it's kind of two different pillars. One are giveaway items. So that's all the kind of freebies you get when you walk in. So like a bobblehead, t-shirt, jersey, baseball cap. I'm kind of nicknamed the bobblehead guy. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing that I focus on and do is create the bobbleheads that we give away. So we do about 20 giveaways per year of our 81 home games. And then the other component of my job are special events, which are day of game kind of theme nights that we do. We do have a separate person that runs our theme nights program, which is they're more the niche events that you do, like college nights and dog day and all that. But I run our kind of bigger ballpark special events, and those events would be like a girls' night out, a Hispanic Heritage Night. We have a faith night. We have a Negro Leagues day. Fan appreciation, family day. So then the other half of my job is planning and executing these events that we do on our concourse. A lot of these are pre-game events because once the game starts, we want people in their seats focused on the game on the field. Though a lot of these events do then get integrated into the event presentation components throughout the game as well. So one half is kind of giveaway items. The other half are these special events. And I'm located within the marketing department. So I do dabble a little bit in some advertising and some branding and social media and all that.
So how did you get into it? Is this something that you were always interested in, or did something happen where it led you down this path to get to, you're a senior manager. That's a pretty big time position. So how did you get there?
Yeah. And I grew up in Kansas City. So I grew up a big Royals fan as a kid, went to a lot of games. And my goal was to work for the Royals someday down the road. And I studied sports management at NYU. I kind of knew as a freshman in college that sports were my biggest passion, but I was never that good of an athlete. But then I learned that you can go to the business side of it. And I thought that's a perfect fit for me. I'm not an athlete, but there's the business side. So I knew immediately that sports management was the right degree for me. Now you don't have to have a sports management degree to work in sports. That's just one route to go. So did that, had several internships at NYU, and then built up the resume and all that. And thankfully, right out of college, it was kind of my first job opportunity was a ticket sales job at the Royals. So I packed my bags in New York, moved back to Kansas City, and started working at the Royals in ticket sales. I sold group tickets and season tickets for about a year and a half, which was a grind, but it was a good learning experience. Sold tickets to anybody and everybody that wanted to buy them. But marketing was kind of something I wanted to do more long term. And thankfully, a marketing position opened up at the Royals. So I just kind of internally transitioned and moved over to marketing. Had a kind of more coordinator role in marketing there for about 6 years. And then about 3 years ago, got promoted to my current title of senior manager of special events and promotions. So I've been at the Royals for a total of 10 seasons, which is awesome and exciting. And again, it's my hometown team, and I enjoy the marketing components of it more. But, it's hard work. It's, part of it is being at the right place at the right time, without a doubt. But you have a good reputation, you have integrity. Like I said, you work hard, and eventually you'll get to kind of where you want to go.
Yeah, so one thing I've learned from clubbies is, like, when I was in Kansas City for our first set of instructs, I was talking to some of the clubbies, and they talk about how kind of the beginning of their job is becoming a ball boy down the left field line or the right field line, and then they move closer to the clubhouse as they get closer to being a clubby. Is it similar with the position that you have, that you start at the ticket booth and then you move towards the offices that are at Kauffman Stadium? Is it kind of like that, where, you kind of go in and you say, I want to get to the front office side, and you just kind of move on?
Yeah. I mean, that's one way of doing it, without a doubt. And I compare it to a player as well. Weirdly enough, and thankfully, I didn't have a minor league experience. I haven't worked at a minor league club, but there are several people at the Royals that, did that, and just a player, you get a minor league, you work at a minor league team, get that experience, and then eventually work your way up to the professional level. So you see that also on the baseball side and the business side, without a doubt. But yeah, internships are a good way to get in. Ticket sales is another one. And then also working outside of sports can be a good route to get that experience and then kind of transition over. So for example, like in marketing, work at an advertising agency that maybe has a sports client, get to know those people. An agency is a good experience to learn about building a brand. If there's a sports client, that's a way to kind of get in. So don't be worried about, I have to work in sports. There are ways to be around sports, get that experience, and eventually you can move right in.
Now, Matthew, we actually have a lot in common. So at Dean College, before I transferred to Siena, I was an RA. I was a student ambassador. And if I stayed at Dean College this semester, I actually would have been president of the Student Activities Committee. All three positions you held at NYU, how important was that experience for you in your role and career up to this point in time?
Oh yeah, I still reference those experiences that I had back in college, especially when I was a Kansas City guy going up to New York. I didn't know anybody. Tried to learn to live in New York City, and so I wanted to be involved. I've always been that kind of active, involved person. So being an admissions ambassador, giving the campus tours was huge in terms of my public speaking skills. To be able to communicate to people, to tell a story, really helped me improve that. And then being an RA, my senior year at a freshman dorm, I joked that it was like babysitting, but that's also a good skill too. And not only with the babysitting, but you learn crisis management, with roommate conflicts. You put together programs, events, you monitor the floor, you handle relationships with people, you gain responsibility, you handle emergencies if they come up. So there are a lot of skill sets also as an RA that I still think about and use today. So I was involved in clubs and student government at NYU. It's good to be connected to several different people and to not just stay in your bubble. So I thoroughly enjoyed that experience. I felt like I got leadership skills from that, and still friends to this day. So it was a good experience to be involved in the programs and activities that your college provides.
When you're looking at different promotions, how do you decide what player to make a bobblehead of, or how many bobbleheads to make? So what is that process like?
Yeah, so for us, each team is different. For us, we do 15,000 bobbleheads at the gates. Most of our giveaway items are 10,000, the first 10,000 fans, but bobbleheads are still the most popular giveaway item. So we up that to 50.
Is that, do you think? I don't mean to interrupt, but like, why is a bobblehead the most
Alex doesn't mean to interrupt, but he did interrupt. That's what he does on this thing. He'll say, "I don't mean to interrupt," as he's interrupting you.
But like, if this was an interview in person, like, it just feels more natural. So I'm trying to figure out how to properly interrupt on Zoom, and I just kind of decided you just got to do it.
Right. Right. You got. There's no polite way of interrupting. Right. You just got to do it. Why are bobbleheads the most popular? I mean, the easy answer is it's a collectible, right? I mean, people love having them on their shelves or at their desk, and they like to collect them. It's crazy. You look on eBay or a Facebook group, and baubles are getting sold and traded for a lot more money than I spent to create them. So they're still a high commodity, and people really see them. And it's great. I mean, bobbleheads have been around. Our first Royals bobblehead, I think, was in 2000 or 2001. So, bobbleheads have been around to the current day about 20 years or so, and they still remain the most popular item in baseball. It's just bobbleheads and baseball are very synonymous. So we do about 4 or 5 bobbleheads a year, and they're a combination of current players and past players. We've been doing kind of a Royals Hall of Fame series because kind of the cool component is that players that played in the 70s and 80s never had a bobblehead. It really wasn't a thing back then. So to be able to do some of these old time players and some of our Royals alumni, especially ones that have been in our Royals Hall of Fame, it's a really cool thing for them. They get excited when I tell them that we're doing a bobblehead of you. They're like, wow, I've made it now. I get my own bobblehead. And I'm like, you're in the Royals Hall of Fame. This is just so, but it's cool. They really get excited. So it's great to do these old time players as well and salute them and do a bobblehead for them. But on the current player side, there are several different components. One is, how marketable is the player? How successful have they been? You hate to do a player that is a rookie or hasn't fully succeeded yet. You want to make sure they're on the big league roster when you do their bobblehead. You also want to make sure that they don't get traded, because that's kind of a nightmare scenario for me. So I communicate with baseball ops on who they kind of approve us to do bobbleheads with. Definitely, if you see a player on the calendar that we have a bobblehead, it doesn't mean that they're absolutely not going to get traded. So it's not like I'm giving away baseball ops secrets. But there is, some communication with baseball, and you have an idea of contracts and all that. So, if there's a milestone that a player achieved in a previous year, we'll do a bobblehead for that. During the postseason run that we did about 5 years ago, where we won the World Series, we did some bobbleheads around that. So it's a combo of, which players haven't had one, which ones deserve it. Are there special moments or achievements that we want to commemorate? And so you kind of look at all of those factors and then kind of decide, who's going to get a bobblehead next year. So it's a fun process that we do in the off season to kind of determine what bobbleheads we're going to do, what giveaways are we going to do.
Now, I don't mean to stay on bobbleheads, but as a player, I am super interested in them because you're right. A bobblehead is like the mecca of making it. How much input do you have in what the player's doing? Because I'm imagining if I ever get a bobblehead, I want it to be me doing the splits at first base and like catching a ball. Like what goes into, if Salvi, do you want him catching? Do you want him hitting? Like what goes into that?
Yeah. So actually, I don't work with the players a whole lot on their bobblehead. I mean, we make them aware that we're doing it. We'll tell them, the pose or all that. But for the most part, I have the freedom and the range to kind of do what I want, and then we'll show them at the end. So you just look at the different factors of, like a Salvador Perez, which we've done probably 3 or 4 different Perez bobbleheads. And so you want to make them different. So if we've done one already of him catching, then let's do one of him hitting or one of him fielding or throwing. You don't want to repeat the same pose. And same with, like an Alex Gordon, where we've done 3 or 4 different bobbleheads. You want to mix and match. But when you do a bobblehead for the first time for a player, you could just kind of think, what are they most known for? Are they most known for their hitting, their defense, their pitching, that sort of thing. So you think about those factors. But last year or 2 years ago, we did do a bobblehead that was more player driven. So I worked with the player and he got to decide what he was going to wear, what his hat was going to be. So some teams have done that where they're like player generated or player created bobbleheads. And we're kind of trying to get into that space. The key now is we've all done bobbleheads, right? So now how do you go above and beyond to make them even more special and more unique? So a couple of years ago, we did a player with their dog. So it was a dual bobblehead, and the dog's head also bobbled as well, which is kind of fun. Next year, we're going to do a bobblehead that has a base that has a light in it. So the base kind of lights up and glows. So there's different technology and things that you can do to kind of make the bobblehead more unique than just a simple pitching motion or a hitting motion.
All right. So when do you get your own bobblehead?
I was going to ask the same exact question, because you got to get your own at some point.
Right. I know. Well, the TBD, there's still not one out there. No one will want it. No one will buy it, but I should have my own bobblehead just to put on my desk.
Well,
I tell you what, right now, if you get a bobblehead, I will put it behind me.
Yeah.
I will personally buy one to put it behind me. Any guest of this show, I'll buy their bobblehead and put it right behind me.
All right.
But you bring up their dog. So 5 years from now, let's say Vinnie makes the major leagues. He has Bear, who is his dog, and I suggest, I think we got to see a Vinnie and Bear bobblehead. So that's my suggestion.
That's your take? Yeah.
That's my take. What do you think, Vinnie?
I mean, I'm in for it, but we're a ways away from 5 years from now, so
That's true. You never know.
We'll figure that out when we get there. I just think it's so fascinating, just within the world of baseball, how many different things there are going on. Like, just in small terms of just talking about a bobblehead, sometimes you do have to go through baseball ops to make sure the player is going to actually be there, or it's just so fascinating to me, all the different roles that a baseball franchise has. So what is the most interesting thing you get to do on a day-to-day basis, being in your position?
I mean, probably, so we talked about bobbleheads. On the event side, there's just a lot of variety to it. I mean, I get to plan a bunch of mini events, basically. Mm-hmm. So one day I'm working on a Faith Day, the next day on Star Wars Day, the next day on our family day and face painters and autographs and all that. So there's a lot of variety to what I do, which is what I enjoy. And then also each season has its own personality and characteristics, and you just don't know what's going to come up season to season, whether it's something goofy or weird or some milestone or the team doing well or whatnot. So each year is kind of a different year, and there's a lot of variety in terms of the events and the giveaways that we get to do. So, often I'll go into the day not knowing what's going to happen, what's going to come up, and then you have to adjust. And, Royals baseball is a 24/7 brand, even though there is an off season, it's year round, 24/7, and things can kind of come up. But what I most love about the job is the impact that we get to have. Whether it's from a community standpoint or seeing a kid get a bobblehead or seeing a couple of adults on a night out enjoy an event that we're doing. So it's really cool to see the impact and the smiles and the joys that we put on people's faces on a daily basis. On the reverse side of that, the most difficult part is attention to detail, because if something goes wrong, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on us. A lot of people will know, things will get on social media, all that. So there's a respect of I got to bring my A game because I'm at the professional level and all these people. So, like a bobblehead, if a name is spelled wrong or something like that, that's disaster, or a giveaway, the logo's not right or the colors aren't correct, or on an event, if there's a big mishap on an event or whatnot, or people don't show up, or so all those things, you have to have your T's crossed, your I's dotted, to make sure all these small little details add up to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Now, I'm sure you learned some of those skills in your positions that you had at NYU, and I kind of understood that a lot of times you can't really focus too much on the small details, but you have to, if that makes sense. If some little detail goes wrong, it's like, okay, how can I get through that? How can you start to distinguish to where you're not wasting so much time on a little detail and the big picture of things doesn't really make a true impact? So how do you kind of distinguish focusing on the details, but also looking at the big picture at the same time?
Yeah, that is a constant fight, right? Because you often, whether it's the small details, you want to get through them really quickly to focus on the big picture stuff. I mean, one is having the right amount of staff too, to be able to delegate and move things around where, the small stuff you can put on a coordinator or an intern to kind of do some of that to free you up to kind of think bigger picture and more long term. So staffing is a big component of it, and delegating. But also for me, it's taking a deep breath, slowing things down, whether just having other eyeballs look at things or just rereading something or looking at it for a second time, really helps with managing the small versus the big. But yeah, setting kind of time aside where this part of the day, I'm going to focus on some of the nitty gritty details. And then maybe towards the end of the day, I'll kind of look more big picture. So those are some components of it. And then also in season versus out of season, right? So during the off season, now I can kind of do big picture stuff. And then once you get into the season, it's more execution at that point where I am focused on the small little details of timing and logistics and tickets and, complimentary parking passes and getting all that done. Where now it's allowed me to kind of take a step back and really kind of focus on what are my goals? What are my objectives for the 2020 season? So really that does allow you to take that step back.
A quick follow-up to that, you say think big picture, right? Do you only focus on the upcoming season, or do you like to think about 5 years from now or 2 seasons from now, or is it kind of just year to year for you?
Yeah, for my role, it's more year to year. There are probably higher ups and VPs that think 2 to 3 years down the road, but for me, it's more season to season.
So when did you know? I mean, you've been with the Royals for 10 years, right? That's what you said, or over? Yeah. So when did you know you were going to be good at what you do? Because obviously you don't stick around somewhere for 10 plus years without being good at what you do. So at what point did you know that, this was for you and that this is going to be something that you're good at?
Yeah, well, thank you for that compliment. I mean, I think I feel like I'm still improving the craft, right? I mean, you never feel like you fully made it. But I think we've gone through some highs and lows as an organization, and when we won the World Series in 2015, and then a couple of years later, we celebrated our 50th season, which had some more bells and whistles to it. So it's going through these kind of achievements. We had the All-Star game here back in 2012 that we had to work with. So it's, building things up on the resume and going through these different experiences kind of builds up your confidence and knowing that you can do things and handle things. And, we've been through some tough losing seasons and learning how to manage that process and market through those times. So you build up all that stuff in your mind, right, of going through these experiences, and all that helps you. So I feel like now if, you ask me my strengths and my weaknesses, one of my strengths is experience. And knowing how to just handle different situations, knowing how to communicate with different types of people. I've also built relationships over time, being in this role for a while now. We work with a lot of people in the community. And so to have relationships with those people, the trust with those people, that's been very helpful as well. So it's kind of all of those different factors. I don't think there was a certain point where a light, turned on and said, all right, I've made it, I've done it. I definitely want to sustain a life in sports business and whether that's baseball or whatnot, but I do enjoy every day. I love what I do. They're very much intertwined, my work and my love, and I don't necessarily see it as work, but I love every day. I love being at the ballpark. And so it's really just fun for me to go through the journey and then get out on the other side.
Now, you interned at MLB Network in college, but then right after your internship at MLB Network, you didn't work or intern in the sports world. So did you kind of decide, okay, I definitely want to work in sports, and then I definitely want to work in baseball? Is that when you decided after or during your internship at MLB Network?
Yeah, I mean, I think having internships, the key for me was getting a diverse internship experience and really trying to find out what you like and what you don't like, while also getting that kind of real world experience every day. So one of the reasons why I chose to go to NYU was it's a very professional school. You're in New York City. They allow you to do internships and combine that with school. So that was a big focus for me. So yeah, I've dabbled with internships inside of sports and outside of sports. And I found kind of the best fit for me was being as close to the sport as possible, which that is with a team. And it also allowed me to kind of discover that I enjoy the marketing side and the creative side a little bit more. So yeah, I always highly encourage students to, whether it's volunteering or internships, to kind of find out what your niche is, and finding out what you don't like is just as valuable as finding out what you do like. And so, yeah, I mean, baseball has always been my biggest passion. I love the everyday nature of baseball, that you play a game every day, the grind of it. I think there's a lot of life skills that you get in baseball that can translate, the history of baseball, the community aspects, the family aspects of baseball. So it's always been my favorite sport, and one that I enjoy every day. And now working in it every day, I now love the game even more than I did as a kid. Any chance I can give back to the community or the kids, I taught T-ball for a little bit and just taught kids to love the game. It's those elements that feel even more impactful now that I market baseball. That's important to get kids to enjoy the game, to appreciate the game, and just to have a fun time.
So I have two questions, but I have been told when it comes to interviewing, you're only supposed to ask one and not two because you'll likely forget the second. So Alex, after I ask the first question, after he answers, I'm next. I got dibs on the follow-up question. So when you look back on 2020, what were you able to do? I mean, this year really hit hard for everybody, but it's hard to put on promotions and special events when nobody can be at the ballpark. So what were you able to do, if anything, this year?
Yeah, it was tough without a doubt, and we had to adapt and change and grow, and everything kind of changed in mid-March, and we were just 3 weeks away from the start of baseball, so it was kind of a scramble. So about half of the giveaway items for 2020 got produced. They're currently in Kansas City in a warehouse. We're going to hand them out in 2021. The other components we just kind of canceled or postponed, again, hoping to do them in 2021. So for us, our social media was a huge way. I mean, we didn't do obviously any in-person events or engagements or happenings. So all those activations got canceled, and we were trying to figure out how to engage our fan base. So we do have a whole social media team, digital arm. They're located within marketing, so I work with them on a daily basis, but I'm not the one actively posting on our channels. But boy, social media was more important than ever. They did more than ever in engaging our fan base, because that was really one of the main ways that we could get to people. The other was I do work with our TV and radio partners. So engaging them a little bit more and telling them more what we want to do from a marketing standpoint, because that was really the other way for people to engage with us, was to just watch our games. And so to have our announcers and our producers kind of communicate things that way. So one thing that the marketing department did do were the fan cutouts that we have in the stands. So we ended up selling about 1,000 of those. And so the marketing team ran that program, which, boy, when I was in school, they didn't have a course on fan cutouts, or anything like that. So who the heck, just is crazy that, we would deal with that down the road, these, cardboard cutouts. So but that was popular. We did them for VIPs and season ticket holders, and that went well. So, but there was a lot of logistics to that as well, with getting photos, getting them printed, figuring out where they sit in the stands. And then after the season is over, we distributed them all to those people as well, so they could have them as a keepsake. So we did, find ways like that to engage our fan base. But so the giveaways didn't happen. On the special events side, we found some ways to, whether to do them virtually or to still do some components. I mean, there's still a first pitch every day. There was still a national anthem every day. Some of the special events that I do tie to that. So we did some of those components. Our Negro Leagues Day, we were still able to have. So both teams wore Negro League uniforms for one game, which we were still able to make work and is popular with our fan base. And then after the game, we auction off those uniforms for charity for money to go back to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, which is in Kansas City. So I was very thankful. That's one of my special days at the ballpark that we were still able to do that event as well. So yeah, it was a mixture of doing stuff and not doing stuff, and figuring out how these all kind of worked. So it was a year of adapting and changing and figuring it out, basically.
Yeah, just on a side note, it's awesome that you guys were still able to honor the Negro Leagues this year, because I've been to the museum. It's really cool, and it's just a really, humbling experience being there, and then you guys still being able to honor the league. That's what it's all about. So it's cool that even in a year like this, you guys are able to do that. But my second question is, when you're able to have fans back in the stands, do you think you're going to hit the promotions and special events even harder? Like, are you going to push that more? Or maybe, I don't know, without being able to have fans, maybe budgets are lower now, so you can't push as hard. But what's the plan for when fans can come back?
Yeah, it'll depend on the climate and what safety measures and what we can and can't do.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, that's the goal, is to be back, do giveaways, do events, do activations, but we want to make sure that we do them in a safe way, in an appropriate way, and our fans are comfortable. So we're kind of weighing that right now. There's still it's still kind of the waiting game to see how things will shape up come the spring and summer. But yeah, we're planning on kind of doing all those bells and whistles, the marketing components and promotions back. Our fans love them. They appreciate them. There are sponsors related to these items. For me, it's a way to extend the brand outside. I always enjoy a giveaway item that I see people wearing at a bar, or they take a bag to the grocery store, or they use it on vacation. I want the giveaway item to last more than just that day that they get it. I want them to use it in their daily lives. That's a successful giveaway for me. So it's an extension of the brand without a doubt. So yeah, I think all these clients will be back. They'll come back eventually.
Now, you mentioned earlier about how one of the biggest reasons you love your job so much is your ability to market the game of baseball. In your position, do you feel almost like a personal responsibility to share your love of baseball and try to bring in new fans every single day in this role, and to show just how great this game of baseball is in a world where I still feel like baseball is the most underrated sport out there?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel personal responsibility, and I'm happy to bear it and show it. So any chance that we can to promote, whether it's the love of the game, the meaning of the game, to people, we're all in. And so I'm constantly talking to not only our charities people, our community relations people, our baseball people. We have an urban youth academy in Kansas City, which is a great way to promote baseball in the inner cities. And so I'm actively involved in that group as well. Yeah, so I think it's important. And it's been really cool for me to see the transformation of the fan base here in Kansas City. We were not very good for a long time, and we lost kind of a whole generation of fans. And then when we went to the World Series in back-to-back years in 2014 and 2015, there really was a true transformation of the love of the game in Kansas City. Everyone had a Royals item or a Royals shirt. People knew who the players were. People love coming out to the ballpark, and I think Kauffman Stadium is one of the best ballparks in the United States. And so there was really a rejuvenation and a love for the game again in Kansas City. And so to see that as a marketing person, and we elevated our marketing game as well and elevated the Royals brand, kind of synonymous with them rising to the championship, was great. And you still feel, even 5 years later, still components of that and pieces of that. And I think our fan base is still in love with the game and our brand, and are engaging with us still as we're kind of trying to come back up. So it's been really cool to see that kind of transformation from a fan base standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. We've changed a lot of ways that we've marketed it as well, to get people to just enjoy baseball and to enjoy the postseason and to play catch. MLB has a big initiative called Play Ball that we're involved in as well, to kind of get kids to go out and be active and play the game, and enjoy everything that the game has to offer.
And what you were talking about with the city kind of coming coming to life with 14 and 15 teams. I think you're kind of seeing that right across the street. Do you work with the Chiefs at all? Is there any collaboration there, or is it kind of two separate entities? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we share the same parking lot. We're literally right next door to the Chiefs. And I know the marketing people over there. We do collaborate somewhat on some different levels, but we are completely different operations, right? Completely different front offices, different ownership. We do share a parking lot, but beyond that, we're different operations. I don't necessarily see them as competition. No, a lot of people think that that's our biggest competition. Obviously, they're different seasons, so rarely do we align on games. Ultimately, I want the Chiefs to do well. I think it just boosts the morale of a sports fan in Kansas City. So I think the Chiefs would feel the same way, that they want the Royals to do well, just to kind of increase the sports engagement within Kansas City. It's great. We all support each other, whether it's the Chiefs and the Royals, our soccer team, Sporting KC. We all try to support each other when we're going to the playoffs or whatnot. And now Patrick Mahomes is a minority owner of the Royals as well. So that's another cool component of, that cross relationship. So there's a lot of communication back and forth. Chiefs players are, fans of the Royals and vice versa. So there is a lot of back and forth. But yeah, right now it's Chiefs mania in Kansas City, and deservedly so. So the Super Bowl was awesome last year. They're doing well this year. So it seems, so far it's kind of when the Chiefs are good, we're not so good. And when the Royals are good, the Chiefs. So it'll be great when we can get to a level when they're both performing at a high level. And I think they can both succeed and do well at the same time. But we also know from a marketing standpoint when to take a step back. So usually we kick off our marketing campaign in January or February. Well, last year with the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl, we decided to, let's not. People are going to be focused on Chiefs, all that. So we moved it to March, and we kicked off our kind of campaign in March instead. So we're going to have that same mindset again this year as well of we're all for the Chiefs, but we know when to take a step back. And when, people are very focused on the Chiefs, we're going to lay low. And then when it's our time to shine, we'll go all out.
So as we wrap up, Alex and I have a segment called 3 Up, 3 Down, where we each ask 3 questions in alternating order. Alex goes first. So Alex, start us off with your question number 1.
All right, number 1, Matthew, what would be your number 1 go-to karaoke song?
I gotta go baseball theme, Sweet Caroline. With the I know it's Red Sox, but that you can't get much better than that.
Mm-hmm. My first question is, how are you able to manage your work-life balance? Like, how does that work with your family? You go to work, you're really passionate about it, you love it, but then how are you able to put that aside when you go home?
Yeah, it makes it difficult in the summer, especially, when I'm at all the home games. I don't travel with the team, but I'm at all the home games. So, it's difficult. It takes time to learn because you do work long hours. But again, you love what you do. And I'm able to have friends and family come to the ballpark. So that's great too. My family has had Royals season tickets for like 20 years. So they had season tickets when I grew up. They still have season tickets. So what's great for me is I get to see them at the ballpark often. I'll work until the first inning or so, and then I'm done for the game. And then I'll go sit with them in their seats and we get to enjoy the game together. So, grew up with my family loving baseball, and, my dad was a coach when I was a kid. And so we're able to share the love of baseball as a family, which is great. And so we're able to watch games together and all that. So, but yeah, it is definitely important to divide those out and make sure you do put a time aside for your friends and family, enjoy life, to travel, all that.
Number 2 for me, what would be the longest time you've ever spent at the ballpark in your career?
That's an easy one. I spent there overnight one year, and I don't know if I slept maybe there in my office, but it was during the All-Star game in 2012. I think I was probably there from probably like through 2:00 in the afternoon, staying overnight. And then I went home at like 8 a.m., I think. And it was for something for the All-Star game for prep. We put shirts on everybody's seats to do kind of a mock little thing. I think everyone wore the shirts and the stands looked like the American flag for the national anthem. And so getting all that set and prepped, it was weird. That was the first time I'd been at a stadium at like 3 a.m. It was crazy. And then I think I slept. I went home at 8 a.m. and slept, and then went back to the ballpark at like 2 p.m. So that All-Star week was a busy, crazy week. But looking back on it, it was really rewarding.
What do you prefer drinking out of, glass or plastic?
I'll go with plastic.
Wow, I think you're the first one to say that so far. Is that true? Is he the first one to say that?
I think he's the first one.
I think you're the first one. Trendsetter today on the podcast.
Hashtag go plastic. I don't know.
Yeah.
What would be your favorite baseball movie?
Oh, Field of Dreams for me. And then probably Sandlot after that. But and my family grew up in Iowa.
How far away from the field?
He grew up in Cedar Rapids, which I don't know how far Cedar Rapids is from Field of Dreams. So that's still on my bucket list. I have not been up there. And I'm really excited for MLB to have a game there. They did announce that's going to happen in 2021, which is great. But, some of those lines in Field of Dreams, I repeat them almost on a yearly basis because I love that movie.
So explain, I don't even know if this is possible, but explain what would happen if the Royals and the Chiefs did have a game on the same day, and how much of a headache would you have?
I think it's happened once, and it was a very big headache. So they avoided at all costs. We'll even move a game if we need to. We had to move our game this past season because the Chiefs were the first game. It was a Thursday night game on NBC. We had scheduled to have a game that day. This was pre-pandemic, and so we moved the game, did a doubleheader the day before. They really can't with the parking lot situation and all that. I think one time we had a game where the Royals played in the afternoon, the Chiefs played at night, and it was a nightmare. We did, I think, a ticket deal for them at that time where we sold tickets to both games. People could stay in the parking lot, but they can't happen. So now our schedule comes out first, I think, and then the Chiefs adjust from there and make sure that we can't have a game on the same day, because it would be a complete traffic jam for the most part.
Well, Matthew, we want to just say thanks so much for taking the time to come on a whole new ball game today. As Vinnie likes to say, put yourself over, market yourself. Where can people follow you?
30-second elevator pitch. What is Matthew Schulte, right? Schulte. Yeah. What does Matthew Schulte bring to the table on social media, and why should people follow you?
Oh man, well, I'm pretty active. I go out and about a lot, COVID friendly, right? But I like to go to bars and restaurants in town and go to shows and events. A lot of people kind of follow me vicariously through Facebook and Instagram and whatnot to follow where I'm at and where I'm going. And I just happen to know the ins and outs of Kansas City of like what's happening and tickets to events and all that. So I thankfully get to find my way into kind of some cool new trendy spaces and events that go on around town. So if you want to know about Kansas City, and I love Kansas City and the cool components that KC has, it's a great nightlife scene and food scene and bar scene. Our arts are great, the symphony and the ballet and the musicals here and the theater. So you can follow me to find out everything that KC has to offer.
Yep. So everybody listening, do what I just did and hit that follow button. Right. Follow him on social media.
So I have one more question. What is your go-to barbecue place in Kansas City?
Oh, I like Arthur Bryant's a lot, and then Joe's KC, the location in the gas station. Those are kind of the most well-known. But there's so many hole-in-the-wall places in Kansas City. This is truly the best place for barbecue.
Well, this was awesome. Thanks for taking the time for us to come educate everybody, because there's a lot of stuff that I just learned that I find super fascinating. So thank you for taking the time and coming to share your knowledge.
You're welcome. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Welcome back from our interview with Matthew Schulte. Speaking of MS names, my favorite all-time football player, this is breaking news, everybody. My all-time favorite football player, Mark the Sanchez, liked a tweet of mine. And I've never, ever been more excited about anything in my life. I mean, I don't remember. It was 2009 and 2010 when the Jets went to the AFC Championship 2 years in a row. So I was 15. I don't know. 13. I guess I was 13. Yeah, I'm not a math guy. What can I say? But 2 straight AFC Championships under the regime of Mark Sanchez. And he's always been my guy. I had a jersey. I had a sweatshirt with his name and number on the back. And he just liked a tweet of mine because I said my first favorite quarterback of the team that I liked was Mark Sanchez. And I'm pumped about it. So that's my exciting news of today. That is breaking news that I think this is my peak. I'm pretty sure this is my peak. So everybody, you've witnessed my peak, and thank you.
Now we just got to get him on the podcast.
That's right. Now we got to get him on the podcast. I'll do him a favor. He does us a favor. I'll go on his podcast. He can come on ours. I mean, he's not a baseball guy. Yeah, he's not a baseball guy. I'm not a football guy. It works out perfectly. I mean, he can come on here. We can discuss whatever he wants. I can go over to his podcast, and I'll still discuss whatever he wants. Doesn't matter. So that's where I'm at right now. I am in total fanboy mode, and I'm very, very excited about it. But, Alex, how about that Matthew Schulte interview?
Nah, he's just a great person to talk with, and he dropped a lot of insight on the business side and the marketing side of the game of baseball. And, one of my favorite parts in this interview was when he did say that he does feel a personal responsibility to grow the game. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's something that's kind of the underlying message in almost every one of these interviews, right?
Well, that's the important thing is we've had reporters on, we've had TV people on, we've had players on. We want to have clubbies on. We want to have different people involved in the game in a different light that's not just one side of the spectrum. So what is a common theme about anybody who works in baseball is that we want to advance the game of baseball. It doesn't matter if you play, if you own a team, if you run a team, if you're in charge of a specific thing in the team. Like everybody involved, whether it's on-field personnel, people working in the ticket booth, wherever it may be, everybody just wants to expand on the game of baseball, and that's what it's all about. It's the quote of leaving the game in a better place than you found it, and that's what everybody we bring on this show is doing. That's what it's all about. So it's cool to hear from him and for him to say that, because that's why we started the show, is to hear from people who are making it their mission to leave the game in a better place. So hearing from him was just really cool.
Yeah, no, it was great. And it was a great follow on Twitter too. So be sure to follow him, and always providing some great content on there too. Overall, great show. Great 2 shows. Yesterday, Darryl Strawberry. Today, Matthew Schulte. And Thursday, the last show of 2020. Mm-hmm. We're ending it off with a bang.
The question is, Alex, do we have an award ceremony on Thursday? Do we do the guest of the year for 2020? Even though we only have, a few guests to pick from, do we make a decision? Do we not? Do we wait until 2021 and have a full award show where we just include 2020 into 2021? What do you think?
Well, so today was episode 47. Friday or Thursday.
Are we going to count
the
Ballgame Part 1? Could those count? Because could I be named guest of the year and host of the year all in one award ceremony?
Host of the year? No. That's impossible. It's impossible for you to be host of the year.
It is possible because there's 3 hosts that could be named host of the year. So it's 1 out of 3. And then there's, we've had a few people on twice. So there's probably 42, 43 people that could be named guest of the year. And I'm on both of those lists. I'm the only person that's on both of those lists. So it is possible, Alex.
It is possible. You're right. Chances of it happening, though, slim to none.
I could be the guest of the year and the host of the year. What a year it would be if that happens. Now, obviously, we're going to need to figure out the voting platform because 2 people can't vote on something because you need an odd number. So maybe we each come up with a panel of people that we know that listen to the show, and they can choose. We let the people decide. What do you think?
I like that, and honestly, I think we do have to count the first half.
I think so too, because it's a part of the show.
Right. It's the show's history.
We would not be here without the first part of the show.
This is true.
And we would like to thank Ben for everything that he contributed to the show.
100%.
There's no doubt about it. Without Ben, there is no show. So he needed to leave. You needed to, find somebody to join the show because you were continuing on, and things like that happen in the business. I mean, at some point, I'm going to kick you off the show, like I've already said. You're just going to fade into oblivion as I take this show to levels it's never seen before. At some point.
Just remember who still has possession of your jersey.
That's right. Don't believe me. I know. Everything is – the gears are turning up there. The gears are turning. That is for sure.
That's like my Thanos stone. Okay? Like, you're stuck now.
Well, the problem is I'm not stuck because I do have a jersey of mine, but it does have my last name on it. So I think that honestly makes that jersey not as meaningful because I never wore it in a game or anything. It was awarded to me, but I didn't ever wear it. So, But it does have my last name on it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. But no, like all jokes aside, again, appreciate Ben, for all he did with the podcast, and excited for this new beginning, in chapter in the podcast history. And I think this is already week 4.
Is it?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I think you're right.
Because we started the first week of December.
Yeah, that's right.
So we are officially a month in.
A month in.
What a month. And I believe we've done, not a math guy, but 14 episodes.
Yeah. And we are still open for sponsorship interviews. In case anybody out there, I just want to let you know we are open for that.
Always. We are always open to sponsorship interviews. But that does
my plug of the day. Normally, you know how you used to tell people to subscribe and everything? That'll be my plug, is that I'll tell future sponsors that we are willing to listen.
Yeah, we are 100% willing. But also anyone listening, don't forget to subscribe if you're watching us. If you're listening to us, drop that 5-star review. Get us to 100 5-star reviews so Vinnie can sleep at night.
That's right.
And
That's right. It's been real difficult for me to sleep based off the amount of reviews that we have.
Yeah, it's causing him a lot of stress and anxiety, and he's just been unable to get a good night's sleep.
Just help me help you, Yeah,
right. Vinnie needs sleep so he can do a better job at interviewing people.
That's
so,
right.
I think if you just drop that 5-star review, and I hope the episodes get better.
That's right.
But to wrap it up, thank you to Matthew Schulte. Thank you to Vinnie. But most importantly, thank you, Bear, for just being a great listener.
Yeah, he is a really good listener. Really good listener. Good. Anyways, we've got Den Man on Thursday. We're really fired up about that interview. And we will see you on Thursday.
Have a great rest of your day.